This is Akashvani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Central Board of Direct Taxes Income Tax e-Appeal Scheme. The participants are Sharad Kohli, Economic Analyst, and Gaura Dhawanlal, Anchor. The Central Board of Direct Taxes recently notified the e-Appeal Scheme 2023 with the aim to speed up hearing of appeals in income tax matters. We are joined by Dr. Sharad Kohli here on the program to tell us a little more about this. How does it affect our personal lives, our personal tax returns, or anything which is pending? How does it benefit the common man?
You see, what happened is that ever since the digitalization of income tax happened a few years ago, and most recently when we saw the faceless concept walk into income tax, faceless meant that there is no interaction between the taxpayer and the officer in charge who's doing the assessment. So it was all a national faceless assessment center was set up where the returns which were filed in Delhi were probably the taxpayer did not know where the returns are being assessed, and the officer also did not have much idea of where the taxpayer is located. This was to cut down the interaction, simplify the thing, take care of issues like corruption, take care of issues like hassles where the taxpayer had to continuously or repeatedly visit the income tax offices and so forth, and spend a lot of time waiting there and so forth. So I think in continuation of that, this appeal feature was added to the faceless concept. When I say appeal feature, that the appeal was, all the listeners should know that if you are not satisfied with the assessment done by the assessing officer, that is, a demand has been raised or you're not satisfied, your full refund has not come, and the assessing officer, as per him, more tax should be paid, whereas as per you feel that should not be the tax amount. So you always had an option of filing an appeal. This appeal is filed in Form 35. And this is called the first appeal. It goes to the Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals. Now, what was happening is there was a National Faceless Appeal Center, NFAC, where these appeals were being disposed of. That is, when the taxpayer used to file the appeal, NFAC used to allocate it to the different CIT appeals around the country, which was, of course, not known to the taxpayer. But the problem being faced was that around 6 lakh cases of appeals had piled up, awaiting decision, which is, if I call them, they were the pending cases where decision was awaited. And lakhs of crores of tax was stuck there and this tax was either the government had to collect by way of revenue, or if the judicial authority, that is the CIT appeal, decided that no, the assessing officer has probably not levied the tax correctly, then the taxpayer was the beneficiary. Either way, lakhs of crores was under dispute. So I think what was happening there was that the large cases, the bigger cases, were being taken up by the Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals on priority basis, obviously, because there is more amount involved both for revenue and for the taxpayers. So as a result, the smaller appeals or the smaller demands or the smaller disputes were getting left out. They had to wait for months together. Sometimes they had to wait for years, because there was such a long queue. I mean, these CIT appeals were so busy, and of course their number was very, very limited, because it was, after all, there was only as much that they could handle in terms of the total number of appeals. So that is where this idea emanates from, that now CBDT has decided that we will appoint 100 JCIT. Now, to help the listeners understand what does a JCIT mean, it's the Joint Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals. Now, these 100 JCITs would dedicatedly be responsible for disposing of those small amount cases where the taxpayers have been waiting for maybe weeks, maybe months, or in some cases maybe years, because the cases have not been taken up for hearing. And as a result, either the government is at a loss or the taxpayer is at a loss. So I think to mitigate this problem, these 100 JCITs will now be responsible for handling small amount of disputes. This will result in quicker resolution of the disputes. The taxpayer will be able to, resolve his problem sooner. His dispute will be decided sooner, where the waiting time was. And if somebody wants to understand the procedure, all you need to do is you need to file your appeal in Form 35, as I said. And then, you have an option in case you're not satisfied with the hearing that's going on. That is, you are uploading documents, you're uploading evidence to support your claim, you are uploading various written submissions. But despite that, you feel that I need to physically explain this. Obviously, physical hearing now has been quashed under the income tax laws, but you will now be allowed to do video conferencing or through a video call. You can make a request on the portal and you can come online with your face and you can explain your case. There are many taxpayers, Gaura, who feel that we can probably explain better when we are verbal. It is very difficult. There are taxpayers who don't take the help of professionals. They like to argue their case. They like to submit their case themselves. And it is those people who may not be having very good writing skills. And sometimes the case also demands, a kind of a verbal explanation, which can be better than a written explanation. So I think the taxpayer will be given that, press that option on the portal, request for a video conferencing or a video call facility. You would be given a time and date when you can come online and you can start talking to your officer, explain your case, and thereafter the decision comes. So I think all in all, very, very efficient kind of a move which has been made by CBDT.
What I'm also hearing you say, Dr. Kohli, is that because it's for smaller cases and smaller amounts, it's not really revenue generating, but more of mitigating the taxpayers' grievances for giving them more, I think, solace to say that, it's safe, there's a hearing, somebody's listening to you, and let's make it less difficult for you. And I think that is the primary.
That is also the objective, that to cut down the number of cases where small amounts, it could be a few thousand rupees, it could be 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, where the amount has gone into dispute. Now, a dispute is a dispute. It does add up to the pendency, but some of the small cases, although I must emphasize here, Gaurav, that the overall scheme has not released the benchmark amount which will be taken, that below this amount, 100 JCITs would be handling. That benchmark or the threshold limit has not yet been announced. I'm sure it's going to be announced soon. But then, yes, it will mitigate the hardships being caused to the taxpayers. And, even if it results in revenue to the government, even if it's a small revenue, in Hindi they say, boond boond karke ghada bharta hai.
Absolutely.
So even a small amounts, they might add up to a very large amount. And we should not forget that all the tax collected is being used for, development of this country. We are in Amrit Kal. The country needs funds. The taxpayers need to contribute. I mean, the government is thankful to the taxpayers. It is because of them that all these development initiatives have been launched. I mean, if not for the taxpayers, probably we would not have been heading for a developed country. The Amrit Kal would have become more difficult. I think the taxpayers, government always remains thankful. I see Prime Minister so many times expressing his gratitude to the taxpayers. They are the people who are basically contributing to progress of the country. So if it results in revenue, why not? And if it's a small revenue, it adds up to a large amount for the government. And of course, government is also conscious of the fact that if this amount has to be lawfully, justifiably given back to the taxpayer, or the demand which has been raised by the assessing officer needs to be quashed, then I think that should also happen sooner. Why should the taxpayer spend sleepless nights wondering that this demand has been raised? God knows
Absolutely.
I will have to pay. This is not due to me. God knows I'll have to pay, or I'll have to pay a penalty on this. And that uncertainty is the aspect which government is focusing on. So I think cutting down the number of disputes would bring down that uncertainty, Gaurav.
When we talk, Dr. Kohli, of, the powers and, of course, the Joint Commissioner that would come in with for this level 1, the powers through this scheme for the Joint Commissioner, are they different because there is no physical contact? So the power to issue a notice or a summons, or is there a difference in that?
No, not at all. In fact, the JCIT appeals, we should know that they're joint commissioners. So, a new term has been used only because they've been designated this particular task. But there'll be no difference in powers. They will have full authority to interact with the taxpayers, to give an opportunity to taxpayers to come forward for hearing, either in writing or through video conferencing. And they can issue notices also. They can summon witnesses also. See, the entire process of appeal which goes on under the old system for the larger amounts is pretty much applicable to the JCIT concept also. I must tell the listeners of Akashvani that this is the level 1 appeal. I think this information may be useful. The level 1 appeal, when you get an assessment done from an assessing officer, the level 1 appeal goes to the CIT, or in this case JCIT. The second appeal, in case you are not satisfied with the order of JCIT or CIT, you can go for the second level of appeal, which is called the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, the ITAT. In case it's a matter of law and you feel even the ITAT, you're not happy with the order of ITAT, you can go to the High Court, and of course it goes to the Supreme Court also. But then those are the matters which are relating to law, not of the facts. Then they are usually not allowed. So that is where it stands, and the powers will be the same. The process will be the same. The taxpayer will not know, basically. See, for a taxpayer, it is the position of CIT appeals. Just that, because in smaller cases, it is going to JCIT. As far as the whole process is concerned, it remains absolutely the same. There's no change, and they will have entire lot of powers which a usual CIT appeal would have.
When we come to seeing that what the new scheme wants and envisages, they're saying that the admission of additional grounds of appeal and additional grounds for the change, that whatever you want to say why you're appealing, it's mandatory. Could you just explain this a little?
You see, whenever a taxpayer files the appeal with the CIT appeal, or in this case JCIT appeals, I'm using both the terms because this is a scheme basically to handle the smaller level of appeals. It's a new position created, but with the same powers as I said. Yes, you are allowed to file your grounds of appeal, And if you feel you're not satisfied or you found some more facts which could support your claim, you can also find additional grounds of appeal. You have to inform the Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals that I have more facts to state, then they give you an opportunity to file additional grounds of appeal which you can upload. And at any point of time, whenever you feel that I am not able to explain the whole point in writing, or the evidence I am uploading to the portal is probably not being interpreted in the right perspective, or probably I'm not able to convey what I want to convey, just press the button, as I said, press a request for video call, and then you can come forth and you can probably explain it verbally over the video call.
In case a decision has been given by the e-appeal system, and the JC has given a decision, but that has repercussions on subsequent tax returns which have been filed for the person. Now, how will that pass on? Can that be quoted for the future ones?
Yes, in fact, you'll be surprised that in cases where there are landmark decisions, they become precedents for a lot of other decisions. In fact, when you file an appeal, I must inform the listeners of Akashvani that whenever you file an appeal and you compile an appeal, you must always look for citations. When I say a citation, I mean you should look for a precedent, that you look for a similar case with similar fact, that what did somebody say in that case, what was the judicial authority's decision. So when you quote that, it becomes easier for judicial authority that yes, a similar factual case has been decided by another authority. So it gives guidance to the judicial authority to either agree or disagree with the view. This will depend upon whether the facts are exactly similar or are they different from the other cases. Yes, I think it does have a repercussion on the returns that you're filing, because if the order goes in your favor, then you can continue to do that for the future returns. I mean, what has been decided in your favor. But if it has not been decided in your favor, then you have to be very cautious, careful that you do not repeat the same mistakes or do the same action in the years to come. Yes, it does provide a guidance for the returns to be filed, Gaurav.
What I'm also hearing you say, Dr. Kohli, is that when you're putting in an appeal and when you're putting in additional grounds, research it properly, find the citations, find precedents, and actually put a thorough appeal up so that it can be disposed of properly. Coming to this question, the speed of disposal we are saying will improve. What do we mean by the quality of disposal?
I personally feel that all the appellate authorities, they are very competent, and I wouldn't really question their competence and their, the quality. I feel every appeal being disposed of, it may take time. In fact, one reason it takes time, if they want to go into details, they want to factually verify everything that has been quoted by both the assessing authority and the taxpayer. So I think I don't see any problem with the quality. I think it was more related to the time, because so far that I know that a lot of small appeals have been pending, and when you go and inquire the income tax authorities, the relevant section, you come to know that they are busy with the larger cases.
Right.
So the smaller cases, because obviously there is a concept called concept of materiality. So they follow concept of materiality, that we'll look after the larger cases first, and then we come down to smaller cases. So I don't think quality is affected. Yes, the time which is taken to dispose of an appeal will definitely improve, because you have 100 dedicated JCITs for the purpose. So what used to take probably months or years now may get disposed of in probably weeks together. So I think it's not about the quality. I think it's about the time, and I don't really see, any better quality, because every single appellate decision, Agora, to my mind, is taken very thoughtfully. And still, as I said, if the taxpayer is still not satisfied, you have the second level of appeal. You can go to the tribunal. You can go to which is why I said that whenever you are uploading an appeal, you must very carefully and very, very particularly see that every single fact has been stated. Some of the people I've seen, they take help of professionals. So, but sometimes I see even professionals, they don't pay attention to the cases because they are loaded with a lot of cases. So they tend to be very casual in their approach, and they just write down in very brief that we are not satisfied and you should give us relief. Whereas they forget that unless it's like a court case, if you're not attaching evidence, if you're not giving citations, if you're not giving proper logic, if you're not writing proper facts, you will not be able to convince the appellate authority. So all these precautions, I think, and all these guidance the listeners today should take, that appeal should be very, very comprehensively prepared.
Dr. Sharad Kohli, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Central Board of Direct Taxes Income Tax e-Appeals Scheme. The participants were Sharad Kohli, Economic Analyst, and Gaura Dhawanlal, Anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on Air. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on Air Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 928 909 4044.